Welcome to the channel. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. Today we'll be reviewing a new brand to the channel called Moemton Watches. The guys over at Moemton reached out to me a few months back and the watch has been here for a couple of weeks, and today I'm going to give you guys my feedback. Now the watch is available on Amazon as well as one particular store on Aliexpress. It's priced around £165 and is available in 3 different versions or colorways which feature a printed landscape. It's like the mountains or the ocean floor, and I guess it changes depending on the color you go for. So this blue makes it seem like it's the ocean floor, while the black or the green could be a mountain or whatever. But this is actually called the Mountain series. So regarding dimensions, it is quite a substantial watch. You got a 43.5mm diameter, 13mm thick with a 50mm lug to lug, which including those male end links is around 57mm overall, and you have a 22mm lug width. Very European dimensions. And moving on to specifications, you have 304 stainless steel declared as opposed to 316 we usually find. Now although there's not a lot of practical difference, 316 is slightly more expensive and it is more anti-corrosive than 304. It's also got sapphire, an aluminium bezel insert, a screw down crown and a screw down exhibition case back with 100 meters of water resistance, and this watch runs the automatic Moemton 8215 movement, which initially it actually did put me off. It's very dated as a movement, but it still is under production, and this one actually hacks, and I actually didn't know this, but 2018 onwards Moemton upgraded the 8215 movements by adding a hacking mechanism, but unfortunately this one still does suffer from the second-hand stutter due to that indirect drive system. So aside from the stutter being visually unappealing, accuracy-wise and function, it is the same as the Seiko NH35 with that added hacking feature. So taking a closer look, there's a lot of dial area for one due to the diameter, and you've got a fume effect dial with the main color more prominent in the center, then fading out to black as it reaches the outer edge. You also have printed text and a printed minute track, which is actually light blue rather than white. You've got applied hour markers with polished sides. There's no bevels on the markers and they are quite flat. They give off a chromed plastic kind of look. Now the syringe style handset is also fully polished with a very slight crease in the center so they don't look totally flat, and you've got that diamond tipped second hand. Now the handset is pretty legible and you can't fault them on the length as well, so you've got very decent proportions. Now let's address the elephant on the dial. Let's talk about that date mag window. Now I'm good with them as long as they are proportionate and have good magnification. This one does have a pretty decent magnification. It's very crisp, but I feel the window is a little large and the actual date window is tiny. Now the lume on this watch is quite poor, to be honest. Not that the camera I'm using shows that. It looks actually quite great on camera, but it is quite dull in person. It's somewhere between a Pagani design and Cadison. Now moving over to some functionality testing, let's check that bezel. It is 120 click. Now I would like to say the rotation is smooth, there's no bounce or play, but the thing is with these gloves and those polished sort of sides, it is quite difficult to turn. So that was going to be something I was going to mention, but now let me take off the glove, which is one of the reasons I really don't like wearing them. Now I'm gonna get fingerprints all over the watch, but let's test it and see. So yeah, the rotation is quite smooth, there's no bounce or play, and if you'll notice that the bezel is actually quite low profile, which is why you get that tinny sound coming out of the bezel. So if you just take a listen, yeah, it doesn't sound quite solid and you get that hint of that tinny sort of sound that I'm talking about. But aside from that tinny sound, you do get really good alignment. Now the aluminium insert, I think it does suit the watch. It's not really dated. I think it's okay to use aluminium bezel inserts on some watches depending on the aesthetic, or ceramic. Now the scalloping of the bezel, as you guys saw, it is a little ineffective because the scalloping is fully polished and it's slightly low profile as well, which means you can't really get a good grip. So even without gloves, you really have to pinch that bezel quite hard to get it to rotate. Now the crown is actually quite nice. You've got a very good grip, a color match ring in the center. It does tuck nicely inside these short crown guards. The crown size is just under 7mm. The function is absolutely faultless and it is quite smooth. Now moving over to the case, I do quite like the shape. It is spread out nicely. I think if it had been shorter on the lug to lug, it would have been a little chunkier. You've got some curvature to the side profile, and the finishing is pretty basic. You've got linear brushing on the lugs, the grain is a little coarse and visible, and then that transitions into the side profile being polished completely, giving you a fingerprint and micro scratch finish. So a quick look at the case back, because someone got mad once that I didn't show them the case back. It's just a typical style case back, see-through case to that Moemton 8215 with the specifications surrounding that. Moving on to the bracelet, again pretty basic, but it still has solid end links. It is a 3-link design with the center polished links, which not many people like for obvious reasons. Now the bracelet does use push pins and a 3 micro adjustment stamped clasp. Yes, you heard right, a stamped clasp, and when you open it, they've made it look even worse, which I didn't think was possible by giving these random sort of brushed marks. Now you also tend to get a lot of rattle from the bracelet, like a really annoying amount, and it has that standard 2mm taper. Now on wrist, the watch is definitely a little big, but it's not bulky. It is only 13mm thick, and that size is spread out over that longer lug to lug. So for wrist sizes similar to mine, it's not going to be that comfortable, and it is going to feel like it's just a little too long. And in all honesty, my MM300 from Seiko actually fits a lot better than this. So this is more for people with wrist sizes above 7 inches for it to fit more comfortably. Now I do think that silver aluminium bezel insert is a nice touch. It does add that bit of contrast to a much darker dial. So overall, I think there's aspects of this watch which are a little dated. I think the only thing that saved it for me was that it was the newer 8215 Moemton with the hacking, but it still does have that annoying stutter on there. Now the handset and dial work is a little basic. I think they could have added female end links, but with a more up-to-date clasp for sure. So for £160, we can get much better and much higher build quality from watches like Seaston and even San Martin. Now there's also some brands lower than that which are able to provide slightly better build for much less. Now I think Moemton do really need to bring their watches a little more up to date, and then they might have a decent chance to compete with what we usually have. So that's it from me today. Let me know your thoughts below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.